Today's topic is emotions. Human beings experience about 15 different emotions, and there are 6 basic emotions: anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. Emotions arise in response to situations and can motivate behavior. When you have a performance or game, you may experience anxiety to participate, but also want to do well for your family. There are a lot of different theories on emotions and why we have them, but psychologists tend to agree that the 2 most important emotions are happiness and anger. According to William James, happiness is the motive behind everything that we do: how to gain, how to keep, how to recover happiness. People who are happy think the world is a happier, safer place and report greater satisfaction with their lives than people who are generally unhappy. Happiness is so important that psychologists have made happiness a new measure of national well-being. Anger is a common response to an insult or attack. Anger can make people seem out of control and can cause people to seek revenge. Usually, anger is directed against someone close to you, a friend or family member. So how should we handle anger? Should we hold on to it? Should we lash out? One of the best ways to handle anger is to be more assertive than hostile. When you are angry with someone, it is good to confront them and talk out the issue. Facial expressions play a huge role in understanding emotions. Facial expressions are thought to be inborn and serve as a way to help others identify your emotional state without expressing it to them. Emotions are states of feelings that influence thought and behavior. People respond to these emotions in many different ways. Psychologists have different theories about what emotions are, where they come from, and how they operate. The opponent process theory was originated by Richard Solomon and states that emotions often come in pairs, with one emotion being followed by its opposite. This means that one emotion, for example extreme happiness, would be followed by extreme sadness, rather than a neutral feeling. Solomon argues that is due to the fact that people tend to maintain balance in their emotional lives. For example, if you are preparing for a game, you may feel anxiety leading up to the competition. When the game starts, rather than the feeling just going away, you may feel a sense of relief. The common sense approach states that when something happens to a person in a certain situation, the interpretation triggers body sensations that signal a feeling or emotion. The emotion then triggers a behavior. For example, if a person is walking down the street and encounters a growling dog, this person may sense that they are in danger. The person would then feel anxious and quickly turn down the nearest street to avoid the dog. These processes rely on the fact that people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are intertwined, and their thoughts, to some degree, determine their emotional and behavioral responses. Other psychologists believe that it's important to understand the biology of emotions. They believe that activities of the nervous system and hormones play a more important role in determining emotion than what people are thinking about in the situation. We are going to look at 3 different theories that support this thought. For all 3 of these theories, we will look at the stimulus, a scary clown, the emotion, fear, and the physiological change, which is an elevated heart rate. The order of these events is different in each theory and is how we can tell them apart. The first of these theories is called the James-Lange theory. In the late 1800s, William James suggested that people's emotions follow rather than cause behavioral reactions. This means that people act first and then react emotionally. So with this theory, we first get a stimulus, then we get the physiological change, and then we experience the emotion. According to James and Lange, certain situations trigger reactions called instinctive bodily response patterns. These patterns include specific feelings and behaviors. For example, a physical threat can trigger one of 2 instinctive response patterns: fighting or fleeing from the situation. Criticism of this theory is that it downplays the idea of human cognition, of personal values, and choice as factors of human behavior. The next theory is called the Cannon-Bard theory. Walter Cannon and Philip Bard believed that emotions were rooted in physiology. They suggested that emotions accompany bodily responses that are aroused by a stimulus. Therefore, in our example, you first experience the stimulus, but the emotion and the physiological change happen at the same time. Essentially, they believe that emotions are not produced by bodily responses, as believed in the James-Lange theory. The criticism of this theory is the question of if these 2 factors can happen at the same time. For example, if you narrowly escape a situation, you may become shaken up after the event, after you consider what could have happened to you. The final theory is called the Schachter 2-factor theory, also known as the theory of cognitive appraisal. In this theory, you must identify the emotion that you are experiencing. Let's look at our example one last time, and it will look a little bit different. First, you will experience the stimulus. and then you will experience the physiological change and cognitively label that you are afraid, and then you will experience the emotion. Since this theory relies so heavily on the way a person labels their emotions, people may experience different emotions for similar stimuli. This theory leaves a lot up to interpretation, and critics of this theory believe that it is unreliable and different responses can be gleaned from similar experiences. People are complex thinking beings who evaluate information both from their personal situations and from their bodily responses to their situations. Most likely, they process information from both sources to label their emotions and to decide what action to take. No one theory of emotion we have discussed applies to all people in all situations, and that may not be a bad thing. People's emotions are not as easily understood or manipulated as some theorists have believed. That's it for our discussion on emotions. Thank you for watching, and this has been You Will Love Psychology.